The attack began exactly at midnight when Pete's explosions lit up the night sky above New Montana's colony settlement. 3 power generators overloaded simultaneously, creating massive fireballs that could be seen for miles across the desert landscape. The blasts were so bright that they temporarily blinded the Vex night vision sensors and created the perfect distraction. Kate Morrison led her band of colonist fighters in a surprise attack on the Vex guards, who had been stationed throughout the settlement. The aliens were caught completely off guard as humans emerged from hiding places with weapons blazing. The sound of gunfire echoed through the empty streets as the battle for the colony began. 5 miles away at the mountain fortress, Vex commanders received urgent radio messages about the human uprising in the settlement. They immediately sent half of their garrison racing toward the colony on hoverbikes, their energy weapons glowing in the darkness as they prepared to crush the rebellion. This was exactly what Jake and Johnny had hoped would happen. With fewer defenders at the fortress, their rescue mission had a much better chance of success. The 2 warriors moved through the rocky terrain toward their target, while explosions and weapons fire provided a deadly symphony in the distance. Johnny reached the eastern wall of the fortress where Pete had identified the gap in the energy shields. His stealth equipment made him nearly invisible as he climbed the rocky cliff face toward the alien base. Years of training had taught him to move without making any sound that might alert enemy sentries. Meanwhile, Jake approached the main entrance of the fortress where massive gates were guarded by automated weapon turrets and Vex warriors in advanced armor. He carried weapons that could punch holes through most alien defenses, but his real advantage was the element of surprise that the aliens never expected. Jake announced his presence by firing a rocket launcher at the main gate. The explosive projectile struck the alien metal with tremendous force, creating a crater in the supposedly impenetrable barrier. Alarms began wailing throughout the fortress as the remaining Vex defenders realized they were under attack. The fortress defense systems activated immediately, filling the air around Jake with energy beams and projectile weapons. But the big Marine had fought against alien technology before and knew how to use the terrain to avoid most of the incoming fire. He rolled behind a boulder just as a plasma cannon turned the air where he had been standing into superheated gas. Johnny used the noise and confusion of Jake's assault to slip inside the fortress through a ventilation system that his sensors had identified. The interior of the alien base was a maze of corridors and chambers carved from the living rock of the mountain. Strange lights pulsed through crystalline walls while alien machinery hummed with deadly purpose. Jake continued his one-man war against the fortress defenses, using his enhanced strength to throw rocks the size of cars at the automated turrets. Each impact destroyed expensive alien equipment and forced the Vex commanders to concentrate their remaining forces on stopping his seemingly impossible assault. Inside the fortress, Johnny moved like a ghost through corridors where Vex guards ran back and forth trying to respond to multiple crisis situations. His advanced training allowed him to eliminate sentries without alerting their companions, leaving a trail of unconscious aliens behind him as he searched for the prison section. The fortress shook with explosions as Jake's assault intensified. He had found a cache of alien explosives and was using them to blast holes in the outer defenses. Each detonation brought down tons of rock and metal, slowly dismantling the supposedly impregnable base one section at a time. Johnny's motion sensors detected a large group of life forms in the lower levels of the fortress. Following his instincts, he descended through maintenance tunnels toward what appeared to be the prison complex. The alien architecture became more oppressive as he moved deeper underground, with walls that seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. He found Maya Rodriguez and 19 other human prisoners locked in energy cages that would have been impossible for normal humans to escape. Maya was unconscious, but alive, still wearing her research clothes from the morning when she had been captured in the fields outside the colony. The other prisoners included farmers, miners, and technicians who had been taken during the initial Vex raid. All of them showed signs of rough treatment, but they were alert and ready to fight for their freedom when Johnny appeared like an angel of rescue in their prison. Johnny began working on the electronic locks that controlled the energy cages, while explosions from Jake's assault shook dust from the ceiling above them. His military training included expertise with alien technology, and he quickly identified the control systems that would free all the prisoners simultaneously. Above them, Jake had reached the main courtyard of the fortress where the largest concentration of Vex defenders waited with their most powerful weapons. The aliens had finally organized an effective response to his attack, but they were about to learn why Jake Johnson was considered one of the most dangerous humans in the galaxy. Scarth the Ruthless appeared in the courtyard wearing ceremonial armor, decorated with the bones of his victims. The Vex leader was larger and stronger than his warriors, enhanced by alien technology that made him a match for human bio-augmentation. He challenged Jake to single combat, confident that no human could defeat him. Jake accepted the challenge because it would keep the other Vex warriors from interfering, while Johnny completed the rescue mission. The two giants faced each other in the center of the courtyard while energy weapons and explosives lit up the night around them. The battle between Jake and Scarth was like watching two mountains collide. The human marine's enhanced muscles matched the alien leader's technological advantages, creating a fight that sent shockwaves through the fortress foundations. They traded devastating blows that would have killed normal beings instantly. Johnny freed all the prisoners and began leading them through the fortress toward an exit route he had identified during his infiltration. Maya Rodriguez had regained consciousness and proved to be tougher than her captors had expected, helping to support injured colonists as they climbed through maintenance tunnels. Scarth fought with the fury of a creature that had never been seriously challenged by any opponent. His energy claws could cut through solid metal, but Jake's combat armor and enhanced reflexes allowed him to avoid the most dangerous attacks while delivering punishing counterpunches. The fortress continued to shake and crumble as the battle raged in its heart. Jake and Scarth destroyed ancient alien machinery with their combat, sending cascades of sparks and debris throughout the underground chambers. The base's power systems began to fail as critical components were damaged beyond repair. Johnny reached the surface with all the rescued prisoners just as Jake delivered the finishing blow to Scarth. The alien leader fell among the ruins of his fortress, while alarms wailed and emergency lights flashed in the growing darkness. The Vex Syndicate's reign of terror on New Montana was finally over. Jake and Johnny regrouped at the fortress entrance as the alien base collapsed around them. They had successfully rescued Maya Rodriguez and all the other prisoners while destroying the Vex stronghold that had threatened the entire colony. The HFY mission was complete, but the real victory was the knowledge that no human had been left behind. Maya Rodriguez knelt beside a strange purple plant that glowed softly in the morning light of New Montana. She had been studying the planet's unique plants and animals for 3 months now, and every day brought new discoveries. The air smelled like honey mixed with metal, a scent that still surprised her even after all this time living on this frontier world. She carefully took samples from the glowing plant and put them into her collection bag. Her portable scanner beeped quietly as it recorded data about the plant's chemical makeup. Maya loved her work as a xenobiologist because every alien world held secrets that could help humanity understand the galaxy better. The colony of New Montana sat in a valley surrounded by red mountains that looked like giant teeth against the purple sky. About 2,000 humans lived there, most of them farmers, miners, and researchers like Maya. The colony had been peaceful for years, far from the major trade routes where space pirates and alien raiders usually caused trouble. Maya stood up and brushed dirt from her knees. She looked across the field toward the mountain range where the morning sun cast long shadows between the peaks. Something moved in those shadows, but she thought it was probably just one of the local deer-like creatures that the colonists called jumpers. She was wrong. High up in the mountains, alien eyes watched her through advanced scopes. The Vex Syndicate had been planning this raid for weeks. They were reptilian humanoids with green scaly skin and yellow eyes that could see much farther than human eyes. Their leader Scarth the Ruthless crouched on a rocky ledge and studied the human woman below through his scope. Scarth was bigger than most Vex, standing nearly 8 feet tall with scars covering his arms and face. He wore black armor decorated with the bones of his enemies. Around his neck hung a necklace made from the teeth of creatures he had killed on dozens of different worlds. He had been raiding human settlements for 5 years and had never been defeated. The Vex rode hover bikes that could move silently through the air just above the ground. These machines were sleek and black with energy weapons built into the front. A gang of 12 Vex warriors waited behind Scarth, all of them eager to attack the human settlement below. Humans were valuable in the slave markets of the Outer Rim because they were smart and could adapt to many different environments. Scarth had sold hundreds of human prisoners over the years and had become rich from this terrible business. He looked at Maya through his scope and smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Maya continued her work, unaware of the danger watching her from above. She moved to another strange plant, this one with silver leaves that rang like bells when the wind touched them. Her research was important because these plants might hold the key to creating new medicines or materials that could help human colonies across the galaxy. The morning air was getting warmer as new. Montana's sun climbed higher in the sky. Maya wiped sweat from her forehead and took a drink from her water bottle. She had planned to spend the whole day in this field collecting samples before returning to the colony's research lab. Scarth made a hand signal to his warriors. They started their hover bikes and began moving down the mountain paths, staying hidden behind rocks and trees. The bikes made almost no sound as they floated just above the ground, their advanced technology far superior to anything the human colonists possessed. Maya heard a small sound behind her and turned around. At first she saw nothing unusual, just the empty field stretching back toward the colony buildings in the distance. But something felt wrong. The normal sounds of the morning had stopped. No birds sang and no insects buzzed around the flowers. She reached for the emergency beacon attached to her belt, a device that could send a distress signal to the colony's security office and even to ships in orbit around the planet. Her fingers had just touched the beacon when the first hover bike appeared from behind a cluster of rocks. The Vex warrior riding it aimed an energy weapon at her and fired. The blast hit the ground near her feet and created a small crater in the dirt. Maya understood immediately that this was a warning shot, meant to make her surrender rather than a serious attempt to hurt her. More hover bikes appeared from different directions, surrounding her completely. Maya pressed the activation button on her beacon and hoped the signal would get through before the aliens could stop her. The device sent out a coded message that included her location and the fact that she was under attack by unknown aliens. Scarth's hoverbike landed in front of her with a soft humming sound. He climbed off the machine and walked toward her, his yellow eyes studying her like she was an interesting specimen. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough like gravel grinding together. Maya had studied several alien languages during her training, but the Vex language was unfamiliar to her. Scarth seemed to realize this and switched to broken English that he had learned from previous human prisoners. He told her that she was now his prisoner and would be sold in the slave markets unless the human colony paid a huge ransom for her return. Maya tried to run, but two other Vex warriors grabbed her arms before she could take more than a few steps. They tied her hands behind her back with strong rope that felt rough against her skin. One of the warriors took her collection bag and her scanner, examining the human technology with interest before tossing both items aside. Scarth ordered his warriors to load Maya onto one of the hover bikes. They secured her to the back of the machine with more rope, making sure she could not escape during the flight to their mountain fortress. Maya looked back at the field where she had been working peacefully just minutes before, wondering if anyone would receive her distress signal in time to help her. The hover bikes rose into the air and flew toward the red mountains at high speed. Maya closed her eyes against the wind and tried not to think about what would happen to her in the alien fortress. She had heard stories about the Vex Syndicate and knew that very few humans ever escaped from their prisons. Far above the planet, in the darkness of space, Maya's distress signal traveled toward a space station called Olympus Prime, where two legendary warriors happened to be taking a well-deserved break from their military duties. The Nighthawk landed silently in a canyon 5 miles from New Montana's main colony settlement. Jake and Johnny had chosen this location because the rocky walls would hide their ship from Vex patrol flights while keeping them close enough to reach the colony quickly. The morning sun cast long shadows across the red stone formations that made this planet famous throughout human space. Jake powered down the ship's systems, while Johnny gathered his stealth equipment. Both warriors wore lightweight combat armor painted in desert colors to blend with the local terrain. Their weapons were the finest that human military technology could produce, designed to work effectively against alien armor and energy shields. They moved through the canyon toward the colony, staying in the shadows and avoiding open ground where Vex scouts might spot them. Johnny led the way because his enhanced senses could detect enemies long before they noticed him. Jake followed behind, ready to provide covering fire if they encountered hostile forces. The colony appeared ahead of them after an hour of careful movement through the rough terrain. Jake and Johnny could see that the human settlement was larger than they had expected, with about 50 buildings spread across a fertile valley. Farms stretched in all directions, growing crops that would feed the colonists through the long winter months. But something was wrong with the peaceful scene. No people moved through the streets and no vehicles traveled the roads between buildings. Smoke rose from several locations where fires had been left burning without anyone to tend them. The colony looked like a place where everyone had suddenly vanished. Johnny used his advanced scope to study the settlement from their hidden position. He spotted movement in the central square where Vex guards had set up a checkpoint. The aliens were using the colony as a temporary base while they searched for more humans to capture. This meant that some colonists had probably escaped when the raiders first attacked. Jake and Johnny retreated to a safer position where they could plan their next move without being discovered. They needed to find local survivors who could provide information about the Vex base and Maya Rodriguez's location. The two warriors had learned from experience that local knowledge was always valuable in hostile territory. They spent the rest of the morning searching the areas around the colony, looking for signs of human survivors. Johnny's tracking skills helped them follow footprints and other traces that showed people had fled into the wilderness when the aliens attacked. The trail led toward the foothills of the Red Mountains. In a hidden cave system about 3 miles from the colony, they found what they were looking for. Sheriff Kate Morrison had organized the surviving colonists into a resistance group that was planning to fight back against the Vex raiders. Kate was a tough woman in her 40s who had served in the colonial security forces before coming to New Montana. With Kate was Pete Davis, nicknamed Wrench by everyone who knew him because of his incredible skill with mechanical devices. Pete was the colony's chief mechanic and had maintained all their vehicles and equipment for the past 10 years. His knowledge of local technology would be essential for any rescue mission. The cave held about 30 colonists, including several families with young children. These people had lost everything when the Vex attacked their homes, but their spirit was not broken. They welcomed Jake and Johnny as heroes sent from heaven to help them fight back against their alien oppressors. Kate told them everything she knew about the Vex operation. The aliens had captured about 20 colonists during their initial attack, including Maya Rodriguez, who had been working alone in the research fields. The prisoners were being held in a fortress that the Vex had built in the Red Mountains using their advanced construction technology. Pete added details about the fortress that he had observed during a scouting mission. The alien base was protected by energy shields that could stop most human weapons. Automated defense turrets covered all the approaches to the fortress, making a direct assault almost impossible. The Vex had chosen their location well. Johnny studied the rough map that Pete had drawn of the fortress layout. The base was built into a natural cliff formation, with only one main entrance that was heavily guarded. However, Pete had noticed that the energy shields had a small gap on the eastern side where the generators could not maintain full coverage. Jake listened to the tactical information while planning how to use his abilities in the upcoming battle. The Vex probably expected any rescue attempt to come from the main entrance where their defenses were strongest. They would not be prepared for a two-pronged attack that combined stealth infiltration with direct assault. Kate showed them weapons that the colonists had gathered from their security office before fleeing. The firearms were standard civilian models that would not be very effective against Vex armor. But Jake and Johnny had brought military-grade equipment that could make a difference in the fight. Pete suggested that he could create a distraction by overloading the colony's power generators to cause explosions that would draw Vex attention away from the fortress. This would give Jake and Johnny the opportunity they needed to approach the alien base without being detected by patrol flights. Johnny proposed a plan that would use everyone's abilities effectively. He would infiltrate the fortress through the gap in the energy shields, while Jake created a diversion at the main entrance. The colonist resistance would attack the Vex guards in the settlement to prevent reinforcements from reaching the mountain base. The plan was dangerous because it required precise timing and coordination between all the different groups. If any part of the operation failed, the Vex would be able to concentrate their superior firepower against the human attackers. But Jake and Johnny had succeeded in similar situations before by using tactics that aliens could not predict. Kate volunteered to lead the colonist attack on the settlement even though her people were outnumbered and outgunned. She said that the Vex had destroyed their homes and captured their friends, so the survivors were willing to risk everything for a chance at revenge. Pete promised to create the biggest explosion New Montana had ever seen. Jake and Johnny spent the afternoon studying the fortress through Pete's binoculars, memorizing every detail of its construction and defenses. They identified the locations of guard posts, weapon emplacements, and sensor arrays that would need to be neutralized during the assault. The Vex fortress was an impressive example of alien engineering, built with materials that looked like black metal fused with crystalline structures. Energy conduits glowed with purple light as they carried power to the various defensive systems. The base looked almost alive as lights pulsed through its organic-looking architecture. Johnny spotted movement on the fortress walls and counted at least 20 Vex warriors visible at any given time. This meant the total garrison was probably much larger, perhaps 50 or 60 aliens trained in combat operations. The 2 human Marines would be heavily outnumbered, but they had faced worse odds before. As the sun began to set behind the Red Mountains, Jake and Johnny made their final preparations for the rescue mission. They checked their weapons and equipment one last time while going over the timing of each phase of their plan. Everything had to work perfectly, or Maya Rodriguez and the other prisoners would pay the price. Kate and Pete prepared their own forces for the coordinated attack that would begin at midnight. The colonists were frightened but determined to fight for their homes and families. They understood that this might be their only chance to defeat the Vex raiders and free their captured friends. The darkness of New Montana's night would provide cover for the human attacks while the alien defenders relied on their advanced sensors and night vision equipment. But Jake and Johnny had fought in darkness on dozens of different worlds, and they knew how to use the night as a weapon against their enemies. The rescue mission was about to begin, and the fate of Maya Rodriguez and all the captured colonists depended on the courage and skill of 2 legendary human warriors who had never failed to complete a mission. The space station Olympus Prime floated in the darkness between 3 different star systems, like a giant metal city. Thousands of people from dozens of different species lived and worked there, making it one of the busiest trading posts in this part of the galaxy. Ships of all sizes came and went constantly, their engines creating streaks of light against the black space. In a quiet bar called the Comet's Tail, 2 men sat at a corner table sharing drinks and stories. These were not ordinary men, but legendary warriors whose names were known across human space. Commander Jake Johnson, nicknamed The Rock by his fellow soldiers, was built like a mountain with muscles enhanced by military bioaugmentation that made him stronger than any normal human. Lieutenant Colonel Johnny Stevens sat across from him, looking much smaller but equally dangerous in his own way. Johnny had earned the call sign "You Can't See Me" because of his incredible ability to move without being detected by enemy sensors or even alien eyes. He could walk through a room full of enemies and none of them would notice him until it was too late. Jake took a sip of his drink and laughed at something Johnny had just said about their last mission. They had been fighting alien pirates and hostile species for so many years that most of their stories involved impossible odds and narrow escapes. Other soldiers said that Jake and Johnny together could take on an entire army and somehow find a way to win. The 2 warriors had been friends since their training days in the military academy on Earth. They had served together on dozens of missions across the galaxy, always watching each other's backs and never leaving a fellow human behind. Their partnership had become the stuff of legends among the space Marines. Jake was telling Johnny about a wrestling match he had won against a 10-foot-tall alien when his communication device started beeping with an urgent message. The device was designed to pick up distress signals from human colonies and ships in danger. Jake looked at the small screen and his expression became serious. Johnny noticed the change in his friend's mood and asked what was wrong. Jake showed him the message that had just arrived from the planet New Montana. The signal was weak and had taken several hours to reach Olympus Prime, but the meaning was clear. A human xenobiologist named Maya Rodriguez had been captured by unknown aliens and needed immediate rescue. Johnny studied the information on the screen. New Montana was a frontier colony with only basic security forces. If hostile aliens were operating in that system, the colonists would have no way to defend themselves against advanced technology. He looked at Jake and both men came to the same decision without needing to discuss it. They finished their drinks quickly and left the bar, heading toward the military section of the space station where their ship was docked. Other soldiers in the corridors recognized them and stepped aside respectfully. Jake and Johnny had a reputation for taking on missions that other warriors considered impossible. Their ship was called the Nighthawk, a sleek vessel designed for stealth and fast strikes against enemy targets. The ship was painted matte black to avoid detection, and equipped with the most advanced weapons and sensors that human technology could provide. Jake and Johnny had customized it over the years to match their specific fighting styles. Jake started the engine systems while Johnny plotted a course to New Montana. The planet was 2 days away at maximum speed, which meant they would have to hope that Maya Rodriguez could survive whatever her captors had planned for her. Both warriors knew that alien slavers rarely treated their prisoners well. The Nighthawk left Olympus Prime's docking bay and accelerated toward the New Montana system. Jake pushed the engines harder than safety regulations recommended because every hour counted in a rescue mission. Johnny used the time to research everything he could find about New Montana and the surrounding space, and the planet had been settled by humans 20 years ago and had grown into a successful agricultural and mining colony. The population was small, but the colonists had built a good life for themselves, far from the crowded worlds of the inner systems. Most importantly, they had never reported any problems with alien raiders or pirates. Johnny found references to something called the Vex Syndicate in the military database. These were reptilian aliens who operated in the Outer Rim systems, capturing humans and other species to sell as slaves. The Vex were known for their advanced hoverbike technology and their cruelty toward prisoners. Jake listened to Johnny's report about the Vex while keeping his eyes on the navigation display. He had fought reptilian aliens before, and knew they were tough opponents who relied on superior technology rather than tactics. The Vex probably thought that humans were weak and would be easy to defeat. Johnny pulled up images of Vex warriors from previous encounters. They were tall and muscular with green scaly skin and sharp teeth. Their armor was advanced and their weapons could cut through most human defenses. But Jake and Johnny had faced worse odds before, and always found a way to win. The Nighthawk traveled through space at incredible speed, its engines creating a bright trail behind it. Jake and Johnny used the journey time to prepare their equipment and plan their approach to the rescue mission. They had worked together for so long that they could coordinate their actions without even talking. Jake's strength and durability made him perfect for direct confrontation with enemy forces. He could charge straight into the middle of a battle and absorb damage that would kill a normal human. His bio-augmented muscles allowed him to lift objects weighing several tons and punch through solid metal walls. Johnny's abilities were completely different but equally effective. His stealth technology and natural talent for moving unseen made him the perfect infiltration specialist. He could enter enemy bases without triggering alarms and eliminate guards before they knew he was there. Together, the two warriors complemented each other perfectly. As the Nighthawk approached the New Montana system, long-range sensors detected several alien ships hiding behind the planet's moons. The Vex had clearly established a base of operations in the system and were probably planning to raid other human colonies as well. Jake and Johnny studied the sensor readings and began forming a plan. They would need to locate Maya Rodriguez quickly, while avoiding the Vex patrol ships that were guarding the approaches to the planet. The mission would require both stealth and direct action depending on what they found on the surface. The planet New Montana appeared on their main screen, a beautiful world with red mountains and green valleys where human colonists had built their new home. Somewhere on that planet, a young scientist waited for rescue while alien slavers planned to sell her to the highest bidder. Jake looked at his longtime partner and friend. Both men knew the odds were against them, but neither would consider abandoning a fellow human to alien slavers. They had built their reputation by taking on impossible missions and finding ways to win through courage and teamwork. The Nighthawk entered the planet's atmosphere under full stealth mode, invisible to Vex sensors as it descended toward the surface where the real battle was about to begin. The morning sun rose over New Montana to reveal a transformed landscape, where the Vex fortress had once stood like a dark tumor on the red mountainside. Now only smoking rubble remained of the alien stronghold, scattered across the rocky slopes like broken teeth. The purple sky was clear of enemy hoverbikes for the first time in weeks. Jake Johnson stood among the ruins of the fortress courtyard, his combat armor scorched and dented from the brutal fight with Scarth the Ruthless. The alien leader's body lay motionless beneath a pile of crystalline debris, his reign of terror finally ended by human determination and superior tactics. Johnny Stevens emerged from the collapsed tunnels leading Maya Rodriguez and the 19 other rescued prisoners toward safety. All of the humans had survived their captivity, though some needed medical attention for injuries received during their imprisonment. Maya walked under her own power, her scientific mind already analyzing everything she had witnessed during the rescue. The three groups of human fighters converged on the colony settlement as the sun climbed higher in the alien sky. Kate Morrison's resistance fighters had successfully driven off the Vex guards who had been stationed throughout the town. Pete Davis had created such spectacular explosions that several buildings would need to be rebuilt. But no colonists had been seriously injured during the battle. Maya Rodriguez found herself surrounded by people who wanted to hear about her experience as a prisoner of the Vex Syndicate. She described the alien fortress and the advanced technology that the reptilian warriors had used to dominate this region of space. Her scientific training had allowed her to observe details that would be valuable for future encounters with the Vex. Jake and Johnny received a hero's welcome from the colonists, who could hardly believe that two humans had single-handedly destroyed an entire alien military base. Children gathered around the legendary Marines, asking to touch their weapons and hear stories about battles on distant worlds. The two warriors were modest about their achievement, explaining that victory had only been possible because of the courage shown by Kate Morrison and her resistance fighters. Without the distraction created by the colonist uprising, the fortress assault would have been much more difficult and dangerous. Pete Davis was already making plans to salvage alien technology from the wreckage of the Vex base. The hoverbikes and energy weapons left behind by the defeated raiders could be studied and perhaps adapted for human use. This kind of technological advancement was one of the ways that humanity continued to grow stronger in a galaxy full of hostile species. Maya's research data had been recovered intact from her abandoned equipment in the field where she had been captured. The information she had gathered about New Montana's unique ecosystem would contribute to scientific knowledge that could benefit human colonies throughout the galaxy. Her work represented the kind of peaceful progress that made frontier settlements valuable. News of the victory spread quickly through human space as communication systems carried reports of how two Marines had defeated an entire alien pirate organization. Jake Johnson and Johnny Stevens were already famous, but this mission added another chapter to their legendary reputation among the Space Forces. On distant worlds where humans struggled against alien oppression, people heard the story and felt renewed hope that freedom was possible. The tale of the rescue on New Montana became a symbol of human determination in the face of seemingly impossible odds. Children in human schools would learn about this battle for generations to come. The Vex Syndicate ceased to exist as an organized threat after the death of Scarth the Ruthless and the destruction of their main base. The surviving alien raiders scattered to other regions of space, no longer confident that they could defeat human defenders. Word spread through the criminal underworld that humans were more dangerous than anyone had realized. Jake and Johnny spent 3 days helping the colonists repair damage from the battle and establish better defenses against future attacks. They shared tactical knowledge that would help the colonial security forces deal with alien threats more effectively. The two Marines also trained local fighters in combat, techniques that had proven successful against superior alien technology. Maya Rodriguez returned to her research work with a new appreciation for the dangers that existed on frontier worlds. Her experience as a prisoner had given her insights into alien psychology that would make her a more effective scientist in future encounters with non-human species. She also developed a deep respect for the military forces that protected human colonies. When it came time for Jake and Johnny to leave New Montana, the entire colony gathered to thank them for their service. Kate Morrison presented them with a flag that had flown over the settlement since its founding 20 years ago. Pete Davis gave them each a small device he had built from salvaged alien technology as a memento of their time on the planet. The Nighthawk lifted off from the red desert under a clear purple sky, carrying the two warriors back toward their duties in the larger war for human survival and expansion. Jake and Johnny looked down at the peaceful colony below and felt the satisfaction that came from knowing they had made a difference in the lives of fellow humans. Maya Rodriguez stood in the field where she had been captured, once again collecting samples from the strange plants that grew in New Montana's alien soil. But now she wore a personal beacon that would summon immediate help if she encountered any threats. The colony had learned important lessons about the dangers of frontier life. The story of the rescue became part of the cultural heritage that bound human colonies together across the vast distances of space. In bars and meeting halls throughout human space, people told the tale of how two legendary Marines had saved an entire world from alien slavers. The story grew with each telling, but the core message remained the same. Humanity had spread across the galaxy not because they possessed superior technology or greater numbers than other species, but because they refused to abandon their own people regardless of the odds. When humans were threatened, other humans would come to help them, bringing whatever force was necessary to ensure that no one was left behind. The galaxy had learned to respect human determination, but some alien species still underestimated what humans could accomplish when properly motivated. The rescue on New Montana served as a reminder to anyone who might threaten human colonies that retaliation would be swift and overwhelming. Jake Johnson and Johnny Stevens continued their careers as Space Marines, taking on new missions that seemed impossible to everyone except themselves. They had proven once again that human courage and teamwork could overcome any obstacle that the galaxy might place in their path. The legend grew stronger with each victory, spreading hope to humans everywhere and striking fear into the hearts of those who would prey upon the innocent. In a universe full of darkness and danger, the story of New Montana shone like a beacon, reminding everyone that heroes still existed and that good could triumph over evil when brave people stood together against the night.